You walk into your house, nobody else is home. You flip on the lights, room by room, even the ones you don't need. You glance down the hallway before you enter it. You feel it before you can explain it. Something in you refuses to believe the house is actually empty. That feeling is not irrational. It is ancient. For most of human history, an empty space was not a safe space. It was an unknown space. And unknown space to your ancestors meant only one thing: possible danger you haven't detected yet. Your brain was not built for apartments and hallways. It was built for open savannas, dense forests, and dark caves. Environments where the difference between checking a shadow and ignoring it could be the difference between living to see morning and not. That wiring didn't disappear when humans started building walls. It just moved indoors. Think about what actually happens when you're alone in a quiet house. Your ears strain for sound. Your eyes catch movement that isn't there. Your skin prickles. This is not your imagination running wild for no reason. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do, scanning for threats in the absence of information. Psychologists call this hypervigilance, a state of heightened sensory alertness. In plain terms, it means your brain would rather overreact to nothing than underreact to something. And that bias comes from a very old trade-off. A false alarm costs you a moment of unease. A missed threat could cost you your life. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the humans who leaned toward caution were the ones who survived long enough to pass that caution down. You are, quite literally, descended from the nervous ones. Consider what silence meant to early humans. In the wild, silence is rarely neutral. A forest that has gone quiet often means a predator has entered it. Birds stop calling. Insects stop chirping. The absence of sound was itself a warning sign, one your ancestors had to learn to read quickly, because by the time the threat revealed itself, it might already be too late to react. Your brain still runs that same program. When a house goes still, some old circuit inside you registers the stillness the same way your ancestors once registered a silent tree line. It doesn't matter that you're in a suburb, or an apartment building, or a house with triple locked doors. The circuitry doesn't check your zip code. It only checks the pattern. Emptiness, low information, no confirmed safety. There's a term for what your body is doing in these moments: threat appraisal. Your amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure buried deep in your brain, is constantly and unconsciously asking one question: is this safe? It doesn't wait for your conscious mind to weigh the evidence. It reacts first and lets you catch up later. That's why you can feel afraid in an empty house before you've even thought the word afraid. Researchers studying anxiety and perceived safety, including work associated with psychologist Joseph Ledoux, have shown that fear responses can bypass higher-order reasoning almost entirely. Your rational mind knows the house is empty. Your amygdala doesn't care. It's still checking the hallway. Now think about what your ancestors actually did when they felt this way. They didn't sit alone in silence and wait to see what happened. They gathered. Early humans slept in groups, often clustered around a fire, because there is safety in numbers and safety in light. A single person alone in the dark was exposed in every sense: visually, acoustically, and socially. There was no one to raise the alarm, no one to fight alongside, no one to simply witness what happened to you. Being alone wasn't just uncomfortable, it was, evolutionarily speaking, one of the most dangerous positions a human being could be in. This is why solitude itself, not just darkness, can trigger unease. It isn't only about not being able to see, it's about not being backed up. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy has written extensively about how human infants and adults alike evolved within dense cooperative social groups, relying on others not just for companionship, but for literal survival. Humans are, by design, not meant to face uncertainty alone. So when you're the only person in a house, some ancient part of your brain quietly files that under vulnerable, even if every door is locked and every window is shut. Here's where it gets stranger. Your brain doesn't just want information. It wants confirmation. That's why you check the same room twice. That's why you turn on a light you don't need, not because you can't see, but because you need your senses to actively verify the space is empty rather than simply assume it. Uncertainty is what your nervous system hates most. It's not the dark itself. It's not knowing what's in it. There's a related phenomenon researchers call the agency detection bias, first popularized in work by cognitive scientist Justin Barrett. The idea is simple but powerful. Human brains are wired to assume by default that ambiguous stimuli, a creak, a shifting shadow, a gust of air might be caused by something with intent. A person, an animal, a presence. Why would evolution build such a jumpy system? Because the cost of the two possible mistakes was never equal. If you assume a sound is nothing and you're wrong, you might not survive the encounter. If you assume a sound is something and you're wrong, you've wasted a few seconds of adrenaline. Your ancestors who defaulted to seeing threats, even when none existed, simply lived longer than the ones who shrugged everything off. This bias didn't get switched off because humans invented locks and light switches. It's older than architecture, older than fire in some of its earliest forms. You are running software that was optimized for a world without walls, applying it to a world built entirely out of them. There's also a modern twist to this ancient wiring. In a world full of screens, stories, and shared cultural fears, your brain doesn't need to have personally experienced danger to feel primed for it. Hearing about a break-in, watching a thriller, scrolling past a news story, all of it can quietly recalibrate your threat detection system, making an ordinary empty house feel statistically more dangerous than it actually is. Your ancestors updated their sense of danger based on what happened to people in their tribe. You update yours based on everything you've ever watched or read, whether or not it has anything to do with your actual life. So the next time you find yourself checking a closet you have no real reason to check, or leaving a light on in a room you're not using, understand what's actually happening. You are not being irrational. You are not being paranoid. You are running a survival system built by hundreds of thousands of years of humans who did not have the luxury of assuming they were safe. That unease isn't a flaw in your programming. It's evidence that the programming worked. It kept enough of your ancestors alive, generation after generation, long enough for you to exist at all, comfortable enough to complain about a creaky floorboard instead of running from something in the dark. Tonight, when you walk into your house and it's quiet, and something in you checks the hallway just one more time, you'll know exactly what's happening. It isn't the house that makes you uneasy. It's the 10,000 generations standing quietly behind you, still watching the dark for you, exactly the way they always have.